Well, hello everyone. How you doing? Good to see you on this second day of the week. Hope it's going well for you. And hey, good to have you here. Thank you for stopping by. I believe that we're going to have a program today that is going to invoke, I think, I'm looking forward to see those who watch what your comments are going to be. So, little story to start out with. I have a clock on our nightstand. And for about the last 10 days, it's just been not keeping time. And this clock is great. And it always lets you know when it needs to change the battery. So the epiphany hit me this morning. Well, Steiger, go there and check out the battery. So I did, took out the back and got it out. And oddly enough, batteries today don't leak. They have pretty much perfected that. Uh, and if there is a malfunction, it's very rare. I've never seen one in with the batteries today. But now this clock literally lays close to my head, and the weirdest thing is that it didn't have battery acid on it. I mean, I can remember growing up that when we would get those D-size batteries, and if you left them in there for, 2 or 3 months, inevitably they were going to leak. And of course, many great collectible toys were lost. I know, I added to that pile. But in this case, when I took the back of the clock off, the battery it had crystallized substance um, on the negative end. And I went to pull the battery out. You know how you have that little ribbon where you can pull it out, helps you pull it out? It wasn't budging. So I took it to the garage, had to literally get a pair of needle nose pliers and yank it out. I mean, it was that stuck. And when I did this crystalline substance just fell off. And, I was going to take a little brush to clean off the contact points. Didn't have to. Just so get a fresh battery in there, get it all cleaned up. Clock is running just fine. So as I was coming back down the stairs, the thought hit me. For the last 10 days, this clock has been acting up. And for the last 10 days, there was just a lot of negative junk going on in my life. It was just, didn't make any sense, a lot of it. I mean, talking about stepping into a weird alternate parallel time zone really felt like that. And so I don't know. Maybe somehow another. I wonder what have happened if the crystalline material had been on the positive end. May have never changed the battery. Anyway, want to talk about a topic that continues to abide in me. It won't leave. It resides with me as a companion in my thoughts. I'm being drawn towards more reading into this subject. And what I am talking about is I can't believe that this has been missed. I mean, I spent 40 years studying the Bible, studying everything I could get my hands with. I was in that branch of the Christianity that was the name it and claim it group. the prosperity message. And, they're like other denominations, deep Bible study. I mean, that's how the God spell stays intact. You continue to speak the spell over you. So, something I missed. I mean, I'm sitting here. I'm a young 62-year-old, and I shake my head. I don't know how this was missed. So, what I'm talking about specifically is Eve. So, let's go to the source. That's what we have to do because it's the only reference that we have. Now, of course, we're reading the Apocrypha and we're getting a much more detailed story that's filling in the gaps, albeit again, the Apocrypha. So, Genesis 2:21, King James. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And I notice here the he is not capitalized. Why? God is always represented by a capital first letter. If you have a small l as Lord, that's exactly what it is. It's a smaller Lord. But it says right here, and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. Verse 22, and the rib which the Lord, now we got these in capital letters, the Lord God had taken from man, made he a woman and brought her unto man. Verse 23, and Adam said, this is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, and she shall be called woman, because she was taken out of a man. Woman. Now, go over here in the Amplified, and it says, and the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and while he slept, now over here in the Amplified, it has it as a capital H. He took one of his ribs or a part of his side and closed up the place with flesh. And the rib or the part of his side, which the Lord God had taken from man, he, capital E, H, built up and made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And man said, this creature is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Now, before we leave there, let's go to 126. And God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air, over the cattle and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, replenish. Always interesting, even in Genesis 1:28. Replenish the earth, subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. And God said, behold, I've given to you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of the earth, every tree in which the fruit of a tree yielding seed, and it shall be for you as meat. And he goes on and continues to bless them, right? Well, What's missing here? Okay. We'll just go ahead and put our final argument before you, the jury. Genesis 2:7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. In the Amplified, it says, Then the Lord God formed man from the dust or the ash of the earth of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of the spirit of life, and man became a living being. That's how it's been taught. That's how it was recorded. And from there, we've built entire religions. Empires have come, empires have gone. Powers have risen, powers have fallen. And for the last 2,000 years, the entirety of the human consciousness has been encased into an ideology that has advanced beyond a theology. It's become a belief. And here is my point. Of all of this creation crap, well, that's what it is. We get a story in 126 of male and female. He created he, them, gives dominion, blesses, but does not breathe into them. It never said they became a living being, a living soul. Okay? Then the female, known as Eve, is taken out of the man, not formed out of the dust of the earth. Now, by association of guilt, yeah, because it was taken from the man. But this creature, and that's what Adam called the female, a creature, never had the breath of God breathed into her. Doesn't say she became a living being. I'm just going to go back and make sure because, don't want anyone correcting me. Can't have that. Nope. Says Lord God had taken from man, made a woman, brought her to man. Man said, this creature is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Nowhere does it say that Eve was given a soul. I mean, unless you can find a different version. And you can't say that it's implied because she was taken from Adam. I mean, what you're talking about there in literal scientific terms, to the extent of our current knowledge base, you're talking about a test tube baby, a test tube creation, borrowing from the living cell of the host creature to make a duplicate with modifications, obviously. But then never, I mean, unless they left that out, doesn't say it, but maybe. I can't find it even in the Apocrypha. So are we saying Because again, that's the problem with religion, is the ambiguityness of it. It's just it's a truly a mind coitus of all coituses. Um, so what happened here? What do you think's happened here? I mean, this is a radical alter, because you can't say, well, Wayne, of course the female was a living being. What it said, and I quote, was taken out of the Adam. Yeah, took out one of his ribs. Now we know it wasn't a rib. Closed up the flesh wound with flesh itself. The rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman and brought her unto man. And it was man who said that this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. In the Amplified, and I go to many other translations. Nowhere does it say this. It reminds me much of the 126 people, the 6-day people that I contend we don't know what happened to them. I've got a sense they were not like us. No, they may be bipedals, being able, to walk upright, but something happened because they didn't violate anything of God. They didn't. No record. So what do we have here? And I've read a lot of stories. I've read a lot of your comments. And a lot of you have a lot of different beliefs about this, but we can't allow religious ideology to any longer block the cognitive reasoning of the minds that we have been given. Something is there that has been missed through the millennia. Because I give you, as the jury, the following evidence. Only one creature was created that had the breath of life breathed into it. And it's key and fundamental to our understanding in this conversation. What's going on? This creature called woman, Eve, the travesty that was done to this creature. And we don't know the story again. We're just dealing with the aftermath because today we definitely have male and female. And we're different. The males to the females. I want to read an email from Marguerite O'Regan. Hello, Marguerite. And she's commenting on the show that Jeff and I do on Sundays. We also do one on Wednesday nights, and we get into these. We're going to get into this topic more because this is a fundamental problem. You cannot build a religion, a faith, an ideology, or create a God and say that this is not relevant. It doesn't have any impact. I say it has all the impact because something's wrong here. We have these gods. A God, part of the God, I don't know. It just says that they breathed into man, and man became a living soul, a living being. That's the words that are used. So what do we have? I just did a story that's amazing to me. Someone would said, about the reptilians they found in Peru. Someone said, "Oh no, that's been debunked. They found the guy who actually did this. That he's forged other things." Who said it was that guy? Oh, it was the Peruvian government. Really? Again, careful. When you side on a particular point that you say is absolute, going to bite you in the butt somewhere down the road. And I defy, explain to me how any human could recreate that. And I want to know your technology. I want to know how they can get the bone and actually get in where the tendons, the sinew is. No, that wasn't done. People say, well, such and such person said this on YouTube. Really? Were they there? Were they physical observers to this place in Peru? Did they go there themselves? No. But we will so readily take the word that helps justify our core image of ourselves. It's easier that way. Much easier to say, well, Wayne, there's only humans here. Wrong. There's a serpent race that lives here, lived here before we got here. And apparently, no matter how you want to frame it, genetically, modification, impregnation, exchange of semen, chromosomes, cells, DNA was injected into our bloodline, and it was never removed. Our bloodline has been contaminated from the beginning. If you want to say it was contaminated, who knows? Maybe we've been fed a wrong story. So, Marguerite, I'm going to read your email. You chaps are quite refreshing, but try this. It's one of those things hiding in plain sight. Who came first, Adam or Eve? Run your hand over your chest, and what do you bump into? The vestigial mammary glands. You were meant to be girls, boys. I happen to agree with you, Marguerite. Nature does not make women from one of your ribs. You are made from inside a woman's belly and come out between our legs. Fact. All fetuses are female until about 8 weeks in the gestation cycle. Fact. What other life form has that? Oh, I don't know. The insect kingdom? Oh, the reptilian kingdom. Eve arrived on the scene first. Males are incomplete aberration, wombless. That's fact. I just talked about the womb man. They just turned the story around. There is one who stands in a holy, omnipotent, omnipotent, omnipresent, all provident, all protectant, all loving, all caring relationship with each and every new human individual. The good mother. That's a fact. We've got to get it changed into our consciousness. This male-dominated theology, ideology, governments is a bunch of crap. It's all it's ever gave man was a crap sandwich. Only mother can create a new individual. It was womb envy that got Lucifer kicked out of heaven. Genesis is the story of a patriarchal inspired by womb envy. The rise of the patriarchal was the world historic defeat of women. Too bad it destroyed mothering too. Look around you. See what happens when you chaps take over. If you've got a God hole inside you, it's really a mother hole. It means that your mom didn't do the job nature intended her to do. Don't try and fill your mother lacney with a bearded dude in the sky. Ugh, put us women back on the pedestal of worship and reverence where we belong. Such nonsense, all this God talk. You see, Marguerite, I think that you're onto something. I think I'm onto something here. This doesn't make any sense. And it can't be just swept under the rug or in the back of the corners of the recesses of our minds. There is something significant about this. If you only have one creature that had the supposed breath of the God itself breathed into it, the other three creatures did not, what is that saying? Now, I can hear it being said, well, the two shall become one. No, I get that. But something's wrong here. Even in the Apocrypha, Adam always seems to be unsure. Now, apparently, as I'm seeing it now, let me give you another point of view, as I brought out yesterday on our Not the Normal Sunday show. It's not written. I think it could be possibly implied that this Adam was a god, was worshipped as a god. You know, in the Apocrypha, we know that Michael plays a heavy role in all this, brings Adam up to heaven. The Elohim calls him Yahweh Adam. The angels are made, and apparently forced in some cases, to worship the Yahweh Adam, except for Satan. Satan said, I'm not having this nonsense. Now, Michael said he's created in the image of God. Now, let's carry this forward. The 10 Commandments, thou shalt have no other graven image before me. But we are the graven image. We are the gods. And Adam saw it that way. Adam was complete. Didn't need a companion. Didn't need a helpmate. As we will read, as the Apocrypha says, the male and female were separated, even in paradise, all the way to the animal species. Eve ruled. Adam apparently had domain. Now, throughout all the ancient text, because the Bible cut it short, they had to cut it short. I mean, if they could not prolong the story out, because if it did, it opens up Pandora's box with a flood of questions that they couldn't answer. And that is, well, even Eve called Adam Lord, capital L. In the Apocrypha, we read that when Seth and Eve was walking on the road going back to the physical place of paradise, a lion came out and a snake came out. The lion went to attack Seth, and the adder bit Seth. Now, Seth was shocked because he couldn't understand what happened here. He said, how did your teeth get so strong, and how did you get such long teeth? Which tells me there had to be a rapid metamorphosis of evolutionary change into the very earth, which would then say, well, how could that be created? I'll tell you how it was created. Whatever this event happened in this place termed paradise or the garden altered time realities. That's how it happened. It's easier to transpose a contained area jump over into another reality where you just insert them in there. I mean, isn't that what they said in Genesis 2:5, 2:6? God picked up Adam and placed him into the garden. We are so limited in a one-dimensional thought process that we don't even consider that maybe what we were seeing back then was the ability of high frequency beings. I mean, these are thought beings. When you hear that it said God said, he didn't say that physically. He said it to the mind. Words are the worst form of communication. They were thought beings, as we will find in the apocalypse of Adam. Michael says of Seth, Seth wrote down the words, but never spoke them. Didn't need to. He was a thinking being. They had telepathy. They were gods. Seth knew they were gods. I mean, you had the power of attorney. You had the contract in your hand. I am a god. Bow down to me. You shall worship me. Maybe that's exactly what we are. Now, the problem is that it's gotten so far out of control. You could never bring this type of consciousness reality to the mainstream of humanity's consciousness today. You couldn't do it. I think some have already realized it, and it's part of the problem. It's too much. It's like putting a teenager into an F1 race car. They'll be dead within 30 seconds. It's too much power. But obviously something happened because everything changed. Reality's changed. It's still, though, the question, if we can't answer this question, what happened? Why is it that we only have one creature out of three that were created? These are the 6-day people, male and female. This is Adam. Now, I'm beginning to think, who gave life here? Male cannot give life. We don't have that within us. We cannot create life. Females can. I find it also interesting on this, and check me out on this. The females have more of the tail than males do. You see, I believe there has been maybe an evolutionary change. And I'm just going to tell you, I've known some women in my time. I've known a couple that actually you could see what was a tail. And for women, females of our species, it's still there. The males know. How old are we? I'm just saying. It still happens today. Primarily female babies are born with tails. Are we onto something here? I don't know. I'll be looking forward to your comments. We're going to talk more about this because I contend this. How can your ending be so certain when your beginning is fraught with uncertainty? How can you draw a conclusion based upon data that is unreliable? How do you do that? How does a species do that? All right, folks, we are going to talk more about this. We will. We got to. Something isn't right. And Ms. O'Regan, my dear, you be on to something. All right. We'll talk again. Be kind to one another.